On today's show, LeBron sacrifices his historic scoring streak for the game-winning assist against the Raptors. The Sixers survive against the Warriors with some late-game heroics from VJ Edgecombe and more. It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets. And joining me is the host of Locked On Knicks, Gavin Schall. Gavin, what did you see in the NBA last night?
Oh, man, the ending of that Sixers game was one of the craziest things I've ever watched. But I think we have to start with one of the great records, one of the underrated records in NBA history going down the drain.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to get to, we got a couple great finishes in this one, some blowouts, as well as we're going to have some fun later on talking about which of some of the worst teams in the NBA have the brightest futures. A lot to get to in today's episode. First, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On NBA part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being one of our amazing everydayers. Where we're going for our first game of the night is where history was ended in the Lakers win against the Raptors. Let's throw it out to Locked On Lakers for more on this one.
Nick Kamenetsky, co-host of the Locked On Lakers podcast, and the Lakers get a 123-120 win over the Raptors in Toronto, shorthanded, without Luka Doncic or Marcus Smart. The Lakers played a really scrappy, gutsy game with Austin Reaves taking over for Luka as the offensive engine. 44 points, 13 of 21 from the field, 5 of 11 from behind the arc, 13 of 15 at the line, plus 10 assists, a true star performance from Reaves. And the game winner was set up on a drive and dish by LeBron, whose double-digit scoring streak from 2007 ended tonight at 8 points, 4 of 17 from the field, but he had 11 assists against 0 turnovers, including one setting up Rui Hachimura in the corner for 3 to beat the final buzzer. Just a great effort from the Lakers, cleansing themselves from an absolute debacle on Monday against the Suns. For more Lakers coverage, make sure you're watching Locked On Lakers on YouTube and listening wherever you get your podcasts.
Gavin, look, I don't know about you, but how poetic is it that for LeBron James, for this historic scoring streak to finally come to an end, for this chapter of his career, which has been a massive part of his career, right? This scoring streak has gone back. Like what were you doing in 2007, Gavin, when he started this double-digit scoring streak?
I was starting 6th grade, I think. Yeah,
that's about
30,
right.
Engaged now, have an apartment. Yeah.
Oh man, we're adults now. It's crazy, right? We're
you maybe. I'm getting there. But, yeah.
Man, like so. It's just nuts how long this scoring streak has been a thing, and then it's kind of beautiful the way that it ended, right? For LeBron, crazy thing is he could have driven the ball in. He could have tried to go for continuing the scoring streak. He could have, attempted, driven in, tried a long 2, gone for a layup, done anything, right? Something like that to get that final bucket to get him to 10 points because he was sitting on 8. Could have done it, or even if he had missed, right, gone the selfish route, would have forced overtime, and then he could have, guaranteed himself another bucket in overtime, kept the streak alive. But he did the unselfish thing, right? The very LeBron-esque thing, making the right high IQ read, the extra pass to the corner. Rui knocks down the 3. Lakers get the win. It was poetic, and it happening against the Raptors is also maybe a little poetic, a continuation of the LeBronto saga, if you will.
Yeah, maybe this is overstating it, but I almost got a little emotional at him throwing that pass. I flashed back to, it was either his last year on the Cavs or his first year on the Heat. And I remember because there was this whole Sports Center segment about it the next day. And I think Stephen A. Smith was on, shout out to him, 14 years ago, still killing it. And LeBron, it's like they're down by 1, pumps, drives, defense collapses on him, whips it to the corner, guy clanks a 3, Cavs or Heat, whichever team it was, loses, and LeBron just gets ripped the next day. And I was sitting there like, youngster, like watching that, or I guess as a teenager at that point, who knows? Like all I could think was like, no, that was the right play. That is like a great play by LeBron. Like, and like he doesn't get put into those MJ Kobe conversations because he makes these types of decisions over and over again. And he doesn't feel the need to be the hero. He feels compelled like consistently to make the right basketball play on LeBron. Like, I'm not saying LeBron certainly has his faults, but like this was a moment for a guy who in certain facets has just a massive ego, to your point, to have a massive ego and do everything he could to keep that streak alive. And he just like basketball robot, like calculate the math. What are the odds? What gives us the best chance of winning? Great. I'm doing exactly that. Picture perfect pass, laser to the corner in a season where for the first time in his life, presumably since he was a little kid, like he's looked like a human being and not a god on a basketball court. Like he still continues to make the right decision, continues to make the right play. And it got the Lakers a win on a night they didn't have Luka Doncic against one of the better teams in the NBA. So I thought it was really cool.
You know, and weirdly enough, I feel like this is almost like kind of a weight off of LeBron's shoulders right now, especially at this stage in his career where he's very clearly willing to, you know, let Luka and Reaves do the heavy lifting and you know, play third banana to them within the structure of the Lakers offense. And so now he doesn't need to worry about in the back of his mind, get to my 10 points, get to my 10 points, right? Now he can just play that incredibly unselfish role, the table setter. Doesn't matter if he walks out there and gets 12 assists and only 6 points on a nightly basis now, because he can do that with these other guys doing the heavy lifting, getting all the buckets, scoring, and he doesn't have to worry about that streak in the back of his mind anymore. So for this kind of whatever this final chapter of LeBron's career looks like, you know, in LA, I think it's probably kind of just a weight off of his shoulders at this point.
Yeah, I think it's a great call by you. I mean, look, he took 17 shots in this game. He kind of had to with that Luka. The Lakers don't. He shot 4 for 17, which is crazy. I never thought I'd see a game where LeBron shot 4 for 17, and that's kind of like the highlight is definitely like that he makes that pass, he makes that decision, he makes a great pass. The second headline is him. I mean, before we get to Austin Reaves, because he was extraordinary, and he did a good Luka impersonation in this one. Like LeBron looks very mortal. And maybe out west you've caught more. This is the first LeBron game I caught all year. And maybe this is where I felt emotional, where it's like this guy every year for the last 6 seasons, you've been waiting for him to look like this. This is that old tweet when he was 30, like good news is LeBron is slowing down. Only a couple more years to this. It's like no, it was never going to happen. He's going to play until he's 50. And it kind of and look, people in the comments can tell me if they're Lakers fans, like maybe he's still recovering from that injury. Maybe he's not playing it close to 100%. And maybe like in 2-3 months, like he takes a 2-week trip down to Miami and we see the old LeBron again. But he looked like Colin Murray Boyle, like swatted the crap out of him 2 different times. At one point, he tried like that classic just head down power dribble drive where you just seen him like even in his old age just power through guys, slide off guys, and Mamu like shut him down in his tracks, and LeBron had to settle and take like a turnaround 1-foot fade, and he made it. But the headline there was like, oh, you couldn't blow by Mamu. So like he is, I think, finally entering a different point. And the good news for the Lakers is Austin Reaves seems ready to take up that mantle of a second banana, because he looks like if he was asked to, he could be one of the better first bananas in the NBA.
I mean, Austin Reaves has been nothing short of absolutely phenomenal for the Lakers this season. I mean, it's tough playing in that role next to a very heliocentric star like a Luka Doncic, and yet Austin Reaves has slid so perfectly in that role, and he's very scalable, right? Whether you need him to be a number one on a night like this where he drops 44, 5, and 10 dimes, right? Or if you need him to slide a little bit further back, maybe you have more of a vintage LeBron game and Luka's doing all the heavy lifting, and then you have Austin Reaves slide into more of that third banana role, right? He can scale up or down as needed, and I think that's a really underrated skill set for a player to have in today's NBA.
Yeah, he did, like I said it before, but he looked like Luka at times. Like again, I haven't seen a lot of the Lakers, so maybe this has been happening all year, but the 2-man chemistry between him and DeAndre Ayton is exceptional. Like as someone who watched a lot of those Suns teams that made the finals in 2022, like early, or 2021, early in Ayton's career, like it reminds me of like the chemistry he had with Chris Paul, where you see like just these layers onto it, where Ayton is like intentionally like delaying his role, waiting until like he feels like the smaller player on him, getting that switch, and then sinking towards the rim, and then Reaves hits him over the top. And Reaves just like this is the stuff that you see from the elite point guards, like not typically the elite off guards in the NBA, but he's so good at keeping the big dropping engaged in pick and roll, right? Like puts his guy in jail, slowly works his way to get to his spot, like doesn't let the big commit to him, doesn't let the big sink back for the lob, and then is able to make his lobs look like floaters. And he just hit Ayton over and over and over again in this game doing that. Has the deep three down off the dribble, has the slow step down, has a little bit of like a post game where he can do like that Jalen Brunson, right? Reverse pivot, bump, step through lay. Like there's just so many layers to how skilled he is at his size with his touch. So smart. I feel like he's picked up bits and pieces playing with Luka for almost a full calendar year now. Like he is just entering a different type of conversation, and the Lakers are going to have to really pony up to keep him this summer.
Let's hit Locked On Raptors really quick for the other side of this game.
Well, that sure was a basketball game. Sean here, Locked On Raptors, outside Scotiabank Arena after the Raptors lost to the Lakers, 123-120 on a game-winning buzzer-beater three by Rui Hachimura, assisted by LeBron James. And man, you could be upset about some stuff for the Raptors in this one if you want to. Some late game offensive execution that could have gone better, some tough shots missed by Brandon Ingram, some tough decision making by Brandon Ingram, some defense down the stretch that came kind of unspooled. But you could also just appreciate a hell of a basketball game, which I kind of think is where I am with this one. It was just a really fun back and forth night. The Raptors down 9 at the half, stormed back in the third quarter, back and forth. Austin Reaves and Brandon Ingram basically playing horse out there with one another for a while. Scotty Barnes 23-11-9, continuing his incredible season. And Scotty Barnes' defense responsible for some history in this game as well, as LeBron James, who had scored 10 points in 1,297 consecutive games, comes out of this game with just 8 total points. He passes up a chance to get to his 10 points and keep the streak alive on the last possession, setting up the Rui 3 kind of fittingly. But the Raptors are the team that stops one of the craziest streaks in the history of basketball, which basically means all those playoff losses during the LeBronto era have been avenged, right?
Oh, I love Sean.
That's Sean. Sean and his therapist are going to have a good conversation this week.
Right. My goodness.
It's over. It never happened. It never happened.
just the denial is seeping through the microphone. We love it. All right. Coming up, a wild finish between these Sixers and Warriors with some late game heroics from rookie VJ Edgecombe. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. The season's heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. With DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. Look, there are nights when your team stresses you out. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need a dessert right now. From tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season, delivered right to your door. DoorDash in your bag all season long. And continuing on here at Locked On NBA Game Night, let's get to our next game of the night. A crazy finish between the Sixers and Warriors. Let's throw out to Locked On Sixers for more on this one.
Absolute wild finish saves a win for the 76ers as they beat the Golden State Warriors 99-98. Tyrese Maxey gets the ball in his hands with his team down a point, goes to put up a shot, but it's blocked by DeAnthony Melton with 2 seconds left in the game. The ball falls right in the hands of VJ Edgecombe, who puts it up and in for the game-winning layup. But down the other end of the court, they'd be able to inbound the ball right to former Sixer DeAnthony Melton, and Tyrese Maxey would return the favor, blocking Melton's shot and sealing the win for the Sixers. Now, a game like this, Steph Curry didn't make the trip. Also, Draymond Green only played 9 minutes of this game. The Sixers should have kept doing exactly what they did do early in the game, which was blow the Warriors out by 24. But in the second half, thanks to turnovers and going ice cold from the floor, the Warriors actually outscored the Sixers by 21 points in the third and fourth quarter combined.
You know, the end of this one, Gavin, it just kind of felt like, I mean, this was a kind of a miraculous save by the 76ers. Now, granted, you know, they're going up against essentially a Warriors skeleton crew here, right? No Steph, no Jimmy, Draymond with only 9 minutes, right? So no big three for the Dubs in this one. And they were leading in this game by 12 going into the fourth quarter, and then just had this like really impressive collapse in the fourth where they only scored what was it, like 4 points in about just over 6 minutes of game time. Credit to the Warriors defense for, putting clamps on them, throughout the first 6 of that fourth quarter. But then just the back and forth nature of this game at the end of this one, with the Sixers putting themselves in position to be able to win. And then the clutch moments from VJ Edgecombe. Mark mentioned obviously the tip in, the game winning shot, but a couple possessions prior to that, right, was the steal that gave the 76ers the ball back to have a chance to win this game. So VJ Edgecombe coming up super clutch in the end of this one.
Yeah, they were down by 18 with 1:30 left in the third, and like obviously you guys mentioned it, but this was such a skeleton crew. I just wrote down this lineup that they closed the third quarter with. It was Seth Curry, Pat Spencer, Buddy Hield, Jonathan Kuminga, Quentin Post. I mean, that is like closer to like no insult to Buddy and Jonathan Kuminga, but that is closer to a summer league team than it is like an NBA team that you were closing out against, like a good Sixers team that had most of their guys on this night. And it was just a relentless comeback by the Warriors. You give them a lot of credit. Best I've ever seen Pat Spencer play. I'm a big lacrosse guy, so I'm always rooting for him. I thought he had some real juice. He was celebrating after that 3 that should have been the dagger, put them by 4 with 30 seconds left in this game. And then Edgecombe had 2 steals, essentially, right? Because they nearly get a 5-second violation. Warriors take a timeout. Then Edgecombe shoots in, knocks it away from Quentin Post. He gets it back, gets called for a foul. Nick Nurse challenges it. They say, you're right, no foul, but Post had the ball. Nick Nurse is irate. They get to inbound it again, and then Edgecombe says, screw it, I'll steal it again. And you saw that multiple times in this game where he's just like a heat-seeking missile, like almost Ed Reed-esque, playing free safety, just diving into the basketball. He broke up a dribble handoff in the first quarter where he went coast to coast. The putback was insanely athletic. I have to say, though, that rundown, chase down block by Tyrese Maxey ended one of the better defensive plays, like I'm going to say from anyone, but specifically from like a sub 6'4" guard to like have the instincts to fall down. And instead of celebrating, like first, it's a great play by Buddy Hield to just chuck that ball down the court. D'Anthony Melton, who was fantastic in his first game in a calendar year coming off, I think he had a torn ACL. He's waiting. Could have been an amazing spirited Warriors win. And Tyrese Maxey was like, nah, chases it down. Doesn't foul. You see on the replay clearly, he gets there, swats it. Just absurd athleticism from one of my favorite guys to watch in the NBA. I think pound for pound, one of the freakiest athletes we have in the sport. Crazy finish to this one. And the Sixers, I think, have to feel fortunate to have won it because they really almost had their worst loss of the season.
Just a great situational awareness from Tyrese Maxey there to not, like you said, to not just be celebrating on the ground, to be, caught up in the moment, stays locked in, stays engaged, understanding that there's still a little bit of time left for the Warriors to potentially get their own bucket down at the other end of the floor. Also, Quentin Grimes came up with a really huge and one drive, right, to draw them within 1 point after they went down 4 on that big Pat Spencer 3, right? So you had kind of key contributions, everywhere for the 76ers in this game. And to your point about VJ Edgecombe's defense, he's had some moments where he's looked really stellar offensively, right? Very, clearly showing some serious flashes of future star potential. I think the 76ers got a good one with him, but to me, it's always very telling when you can find a rookie who can make these types of winning plays, these really impactful plays defensively, right? Because it's really like, defense is not something that comes naturally to a lot of guys when they're like fresh-faced rookies in the NBA. And when you're making like game-winning, game-saving plays defensively, as a rookie this early in his career, I think that bodes really, really well for how his career is going to kind of just develop and progress and eventually get to a point where I think he'll be one of the better kind of two-way guys in the NBA at some point in his career.
Yeah, and look, he's someone I've covered and broadcast his games since he was in high school, and just like the consistency from Long Island Lutheran to Baylor, now on the Sixers, like and the Bahamian national team, like he just plays same way every single game, same mentality every single game. But you could see like starting in summer league with him, there was something a little different there. Like or it goes back to like his national team play, honestly, but just like his scoring instinct and like as a very young player, like you go back to international play, he was the leading scorer on a team with Buddy Hield and DeAndre Ayton as like a guy who graduated high school 2 or 3 months before that. Like he just feels like very in place, and he's someone who has the template of just like a raw freak athlete. But he is hyper skilled and he is just so confident, so composed on the ball, great instincts on both ends. The shot is still a little hit or miss. It's coming along, but he's single-handedly in what, like, I just cannot imagine. And I swear to God, this is not me being a Knicks fan taking shots, like just the psychological damage that Sixers fans have taken over the last 15 years, Jackson, like puts almost any other fan base to shame because they've had so much hope and it's just been crushed. Like they suffered, they had hope, and every single year it's crushed in like an increasingly painful way. The combination of Maxey, who's just one of the more like joyous stars in the NBA, you mix in Edgecombe, who's just like they nailed the pick. It's 10 out of 10. Like this is going to be a multi-time all-star, I think, at a minimum. And then Quentin Grimes, who, to your point, is just like, if they can keep him this summer, just such a solid third guard. Jared McCain still getting his way back. He hit a big mid-range shot to make it 90 to 85. I thought, like, I not this game specifically, but just in general, like even if the ceiling isn't there for Philly that they want in the twilight years of the Embiid era, like the future is incredibly bright there, and there's a lot to be excited about.
Let's hear from the other side of this one from Locked On Warriors.
Sixers get a last-second win off a Tyrese Maxey miss, a tip-in. That's how they beat Golden State, and there was a turnover moments before. Warriors actually had the ball. They had control of this game, a chance to get to the free throw line, and Pat Spencer threw the inbounds pass away. Philly goes down, wins the game. But the story of this one was the plus-minus. Guys like Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski down near minus 20 in this contest. Then the Warriors, for the second straight game, mind you, they did this against the Thunder, they throw in the G Leaguers. Pat Spencer, Guy Santos, Seth Curry was in the fold, Buddy Hield was in the mix, Quentin Post, like the third string guys for the most part. And this game just completely flipped. The energy was brought, and we got a little Pat Spencer spin sanity again. I don't know whether to be encouraged by those dudes stepping up or be discouraged by the fact that Kuminga, Podziemski, when Curry's not on the floor, these guys aren't in the closing lineups because Pat Spencer and company are outplaying them. We're discussing this on Locked On Warriors, the good, the bad, and the ugly from a 1-point loss.
Well, sounds like the regular rotation guys are being given a run for their money from the third stringers over there in Warrior Land. But coming up, we're going to get to our final three games of our slate with some blowout wins for the Celtics, Wolves, and Jazz. But of the losers of that bunch, who has the brightest future? We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action actually unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly. Player props that update as guys are heating up, and you can bet on the next touchdown scorers, drive results, totals, and so much more. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets live all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. And final segment here at Locked On NBA Game Night. Let's get to our next game on the slate here, where the Celtics totally blowing out the Washington Wizards. Let's throw it out to Locked On Celtics for more on this one.
Boston Celtics get the easy win over a bad team. Pretty standard blowout over a shorthanded Wizards team. I'm John Corrales of the Locked On Celtics podcast. Get right game for Derek White, which is important. 30 points. He shot 42% from three. Jordan Walsh continues his just incredible run. He was everywhere. He dropped a career-high 22, his first ever 20-point game, but he had a couple of steals, a block. He turned the game around in the second quarter with his defense, which led to offense. I know this is a game that the Celtics should have won by 40 like they did, but it's still, I could not ever expect a game this season where Jordan Walsh, Josh Minott, Hugo Gonzalez all looked as good as they did for different stretches. Celtics are hitting on some of these fringe guys, and that's what this season is about. It's about finding guys that are going to accentuate Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown whenever the Celtics are fully healthy and fully realized, either by the end of this season or the beginning of next. So this is what you're supposed to do. And to see these guys come out and play the way they're supposed to play, not try to go off for their own, not try to stat pad, and succeed by playing the right way, that's really the important thing. I'll have much more on this on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
on the Wizards side of this thing, John mentioned, shorthanded Wizards squad. No Koulibaly, no Sarr, no Kispert, no Trey Johnson. Just you got the corpses of Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum out there leading your team, and that's just really disappointing. Not much to unpack from a Wizards side of this when you're missing so much of the young talent. That's kind of the whole purpose of this season, right? Is development, looking towards the future, figuring out what you have with some of these young guys. So get right game for the Celtics, beating up on a bad team here. Any thoughts on this one, Gavin, before we move to our next game?
Yeah, only that Jordan Walsh has been awesome. Like, I just saw him against the Knicks, and he was torturing Jalen Brunson, like crashing on him over and over again for putbacks, big defensive plays, big offensive plays in that one. And just like cheap, young, athletic wing talent is just one of the great resources you can have as an NBA team. Like, similar building an NFL team around a rookie quarterback, like it is how contenders continue to fuel themselves. You see it in the Thunder, you see it in the Celtics, you see it very obviously in your Rockets. Like it is a separator, and obviously there's a difference between Amen Thompson and Jordan Walsh, but it's encouraging for Boston to see them find some of these guys. And as John said, that should be the goal of the season, to empower those guys to get them ready for next year, like when they're going to be asked to play real basketball games. Timberwolves
get their second straight win against Pelicans squad. Didn't take a massive game from Anthony Edwards in this one to accomplish that feat, though. 125-116 final score. Pelicans actually were leading early in the fourth quarter, this one 91-88, and the Wolves went and ripped off like 15 straight to kind of take control of this game, went up 103-91, and just kind of held on to a comfortable lead from there, more or less coasting to the finish line. Wolves had 7 different guys, all 5 starters and 2 guys off the bench, scoring in double figures. Pelicans did have 320+ guys in this one: Jeremiah Fears, Sadiq Bey, and then Trey Murphy, but it wasn't enough to ultimately be able to pull out the win in this one. What did you see from this one, Gavin?
Yeah, I mean, Julius Randle just continues to put together an all NBA type season, like highest assist percentage of his career this year. Great stat from Ben Beacon and Locked On Wolves, highest free throw rate since he was in New Orleans. It's not really supposed to happen for guys in their early 30s. Like, I think Julius has just always been underrated as an offseason worker, and the improvements he makes year over year, the adjustments he makes year over year. Really slow start last season. He's clearly comfortable in Minnesota. And on a night where like Anthony Edwards had, at least statistically, clearly the worst game of his season, he was coming in off averaging 38 points over his last 3 games, and then he had 11 and 8 turnovers in this one. Julius just incredible picking up that mantle.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think that Randall has been since becoming a part of the T-Wolves, he's been a very underrated, like that second option to Ant. I think that because of like his style of play, the way that you can kind of run some offense through Randall, and that he can facilitate at a decent level, that he can draw fouls at a decent level, does everything at a somewhat above average level, right? Really good star to have next to Anthony Edwards. And I think those two guys, have found a really good chemistry so far in their careers together. Let's get to our final game here of the night, where we got two bad teams just beating up on each other here, with the Jazz coming away with the 123-110 win against the Brooklyn Nets, using a massive fourth quarter to take this win. 42-20 frame for the Jazz in this one. The game was actually tied up 98-all with just about 6 minutes left to go in this one. And then the Jazz just ripped off a bunch of threes in a row that like ballooned the lead out. And then they were able to kind of more or less just coast to the finish line off of that. It was a quiet, and look, in this one, it was a quiet night for Ace Bailey. But how are you feeling about Ace Bailey's rookie season so far, Gavin?
I mean, he's been good. Like he's kind of picks his spots, but he's had nights where he's been super duper efficient. It's hard to tell with a team like Utah at times that just has like 8 or 9 guys that on any given night can get it done, but you just don't know who like the 4 of them on any given night are going to be. Like, I think that is a really difficult environment for a rookie like Ace Bailey. And Utah knew this going in, right? He was going to need a ton of development, and Will Hardy is just flat out one of the best coaches in the NBA. So I think he will get that. I want to see them continue to establish like a very specific defined role for him on a game-to-game basis.
I feel like he becomes kind of an afterthought at times, unfortunately, which is really sad for a top pick, because ideally you want, I understand wanting to have structure for a top pick, and you don't want to just like spoon feed them or roll the ball out there with no structure and just tell them, hey, go get buckets or whatever, because that's not great from a developmental perspective. But at the same time, when you become an afterthought in the offense, and I know you've got Lowry Markkanen going off for 30, you got Keontae George popping off for 29. Like, you've got other incredibly talented guys on the roster, so it's not like he just gets to leapfrog those guys. But at the same time, like, sometimes he's just not even involved in these actions, or he gets like 2 shots in a half. And I'm like, how are you even supposed to catch a rhythm as a rookie when that happens? So I'd like to see him be featured a little bit more in the Jazz offense at times. But overall, I'm still really high on him. I think he's going to have a really bright future. Let's get to, of these 3 teams that did lose in these games, Gavin, we'll have a little fun here. Nets lost, Pelicans lost, and then the Wizards lost. And these are 3 of the worst teams in the NBA. Literally 2 of the worst teams, the 2 actually worst teams in the NBA, with the Washington Wizards and the New Orleans Pelicans both sitting at only 3 wins on the year, unfortunately. And then the Nets, not much better than them with 5 wins. Of these 3 teams, Gavin, who do you think has the brightest future right now at this very moment?
Oh, it's a great question, not one I was prepared for coming in. Off the top of my head, I think I'd go Wizards, then Nets, then Pelicans, which feels wrong because the Pelicans, like, despite being awful this year, have far and away the most current NBA talent of anyone in this group. I think Derek Queen, like, I will deride that trade until the end of time. Like, I just think it's terrific value. That being said, Queen has been awesome and is just NBA ready, has extraordinary feel, can play out of the post, can play out of the perimeter. Like, he's going to be a really good player for a long time. I don't know what it looks like, whether he's a 5, whether he's a 4, how good he is defensively, but that is a building block for New Orleans. Trey Murphy is probably sub all-star even at his peak. Like, I've been waiting for him to make that next jump the last 2 years. And like, granted, he hasn't had a lot of help. I don't think it's totally come. Like, the talent is still outstanding. The defense is kind of topped out at like pretty good versus awesome. Herb Jones, it feels like, has regressed a little bit after an incredible start to his career. The biggest thing with New Orleans is just they don't have that pick this year. And they would clearly be number 1 if they had this same setup and they had a chance to get like a top 3 or 4 pick this year. To me, like, this is almost entirely predicated on the idea of this next draft is going to be amazing, and the Nets and the Wizards are very likely to have top 5 picks in it, even though they both got screwed in the lottery last year. The Wizards just have a little bit more future draft equity. Those Knicks picks, hopefully for my finances, will not be very good for the Brooklyn Nets over the next few years, so we'll see how that ultimately turns out. I think I just like the Wizards' future draft equity a little bit more. I think they have a few more young building blocks relative to Brooklyn that I'm excited about.
You know, and I'm torn on it because the Nets, they do have their pick this year, but then they owe their pick next year to the Rockets. And so like that becomes an issue where you're like, oh, okay, well, they've got 1 more year to be a dumpster fire. And then if they're not relevant suddenly let's be honest, they're not going to be, right? They're going to convey a solid pick to Houston. Then, I'm torn on it from that perspective. I agree with you. The Pelicans do have the most like NBA ready talent right now. And they do have some really nice pieces. And where I'll play a little devil's advocate here is like, so much of this just hinges on like, will the Pelicans front office like do the smart thing and just eventually rip the Band-Aid off and like move on from the Zion era and figure it out? But is there another GM out there dumb enough to be like, it didn't work for them, but maybe it'll work for us, and be willing to give up anything of value to get Zion? And if they can pull that off, I know that like the trade to get rid of this year's pick was an albatross, right? And they should be cooked for that, 8 different ways to Sunday. But once you get past this year, right? Once you get past not having the pick for this season, they have all their future draft equity. Like, and they've got still some other picks, elsewhere from other trades in the past. They've got a relatively solid future. It's just that they're so bad this season, and then not having your pick on top of being this bad is just so hard to stomach, like when you're in the trenches of it here and now. But I think I'd go Pelicans, Wizards, and then Nets. I'm actually the lowest on at the end of the day.
Yeah, look, man, Knicks podcast over here. I'm not going to hate on you hating on the Nets. I like to hear it.
Oh, man. All right. With that, we want your thoughts on all the games that we discussed on tonight's edition of Game Night. Give us your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, follow along wherever you listen to your podcast. But for Gavin and myself, thank you so much for hanging out with us here at Locked On NBA Game Night. And we will catch you guys on our very next edition of Game Night.